Hello and welcome back to Deep Topics with Sean. I'm your host, Sean, and this is episode 11 of the podcast. And if you like this podcast and you'd like to receive upcoming notifications for more episodes, then please remember to subscribe on the channel that you're watching or listening to this on, whether that's YouTube or Spotify. If you like this episode and you'd like to see more and you'd like others to see more of this episode, please leave it a like on the platform, as well as a comment or review down below, letting me know what you think of this episode. Did you agree or did you disagree with anything that I've shared? Or do you have an alternative perspective that you'd like to share below? Please leave a comment or review down below and let's talk about it. I also want to let you know that if you'd like to receive more tips on thriving in today's volatile, fast paced world, then please join my newsletter. The link for joining the newsletter is down below. Okay, let's get into the episode. So, in today's episode, which is episode 11, I'm going to talk more about the current state of my life as I usually do. And as you know, I've lived in this apartment for almost 11 months now. And I've continuously shared how this is my dream apartment and this is my dream suburb and this is my dream city. And I'm essentially living my dream life. So, living my dream life, it's extremely fulfilling and meaningful, and it's extremely impactful. And it's a culmination of a journey that I started 5 years ago when I decided that I'm going to pivot my life and I'm going to start to ask some of the deeper, more challenging questions that people don't usually ask about human living and existence in physical reality. So in 2019, as you might know, I was working a job in Joburg, and I was feeling that the the nature of the job and various aspects around that job, including the context, were not really aligning with my inner identity and who I felt like I was on in the inside. And I, for the time that I was working that job, had adopted specific characteristics to make it easier for me to do that work. So, for instance, I was believing that I was extremely numerical and I was doing these analyses and working with spreadsheets and doing sales and just being this like very professional, white collar type individual. And deep down inside, I continuously felt that I was not in alignment with my inauthenticity, and I did not really know what my purpose was, even though I'd started thinking about it. And I really did not understand how what really was a fulfilling and meaningful life. And my life at the time did not feel fulfilling or meaningful at all. So I left that job and I got into this deep depression. And um, the depression was so great that it was the deepest depression I ever felt. And my sensory experiences were relatively limited to the point that food wasn't tasting delicious. I was like barely tasting food at all. I remember sitting in a restaurant ordering the spicy tomato pasta and just wondering why I couldn't taste it and recognize that my level of vitality was really low. I was really in a depressive state because it felt like my life had deflated. It felt like if my life was a bouncy castle, that it had deflated, and I was just standing there looking around, wondering what just happened. And so nobody really modeled for me a fulfilling and meaningful life in my upbringing. So when I experienced suffering and challenges in work environments, I thought that that was normal. And so when I left that job and I looked around my apartment and saw all of the artworks that I had there, because when I did move to Joburg, I recognized that if that job was not going to work out, then I need to have a backup plan. And my backup plan is to go to art school, even though I did not know then how that would go. So I was doing the drawings and I was teaching myself how to draw, and I was really starting to tap into my inner joy and fulfillment because I reflected on my childhood self and what my childhood self enjoyed doing in life. And that was drawing, that was art, that was expression, that was creativity. So I started sprinkling that in my life while I was working that job in Joburg. And it just so happened then when that job ended that I did have all of those artworks to put into a portfolio and to apply to art school. But one thing that I recognized at that point was that, I'm going to apply to art school. I don't really know if I'm going to get in because I'm competing with all of these thousands of people across the country who took art in school, and their applications might be stronger than mine, their portfolios might be stronger than mine. But I didn't really let that discourage me because I had nothing to lose at that point. I already knew that I'd experienced so much tragedy and failure around trying to live a life that I thought was the right way, when in fact it wasn't the right way because it was not in alignment with my purpose and authenticity. So I did get in, and I got in. I remember feeling very. I did not have any hope about it, and I did not even think anything about it after sending that application. It'd been a long time since I heard anything. I thought that maybe I was unsuccessful. But in January, I got a notification that I actually was successful. And so I needed to figure out now how to go to art school because NISFAS at the time would not fund me because I already had a degree in finance. And so I needed to then, recognize how was I going to make this work. And so I spoke to my mom about a student loan, and we decided that that's the way that we we're going to go. So I got the student loan and I went to art school. And that was the first year of my dream life because I started to feel like, you know what, I really did have to start from scratch again. I had to start from scratch again, but I did not lose anything that I developed over that time. Like I still had knowledge and expertise in finance, in economics, in statistics, in accounting, and business. And I had worked these like extremely like high impact jobs. Being an assistant brand manager in one of these top multinational companies, it's a wonderful opportunity. Even though I had a stupid, fucked up boss, it's still a wonderful opportunity, and I still learned a lot, and I still did a lot, and I really refined the skills that I developed in that environment. And even that sales job in Joburg, it didn't feel like me, but I learned a lot about like operational risk management and sales, and doing cold outreach and analysis and proposal writing and all of these types of things. So I was really going to art school, like starting from scratch in one avenue, but really coming like a fully fledged, um, well developed, refined person. And so I was picking up the skills of art, but I was doing it like being a finance professional, tapping into my creative self again. So that was year one of my dream life, and this is 20, 21, 22, 23. This is year five of my dream life. So year five of my dream life, I feel like I'm a more complex individual now because I have since then have worked a job in like business intelligence analysis, and have also built a business and have achieved like great revenue growth on my business, and have learned all of these things about brand management, marketing, sales, and so forth, that really are giving me the upper hand in human living. I It's something that I had to learn on my own because remember, nobody modeled for me what a fulfilling and meaningful life was. Instead, they modeled for me what a depressed life looks like. And so when I chose this like different avenue, the road less traveled, I really had to figure out how it was going to go. And the only people that can offer me advice appears to be the people on YouTube that are like relatively successful, but they also take like 6-week vacations out in the mountains to meditate, and they are working remote businesses, and they are doing all of these things that I thought were impossible, but I actually find out that I actually were not looking at the right people, and I was looking at the wrong people to show me how to do this. So now that I'm in this space where I can see that it's being done and it's being done well by people around the world, and I look at my subscriptions on YouTube, and I look at who I'm following on Instagram, and I see that the people that I follow are living the life that I want to live. And they're living the life that I want to live. And so I learned from them because essentially they are like me in some ways. And I've also noticed that the things that they advise, I've ended up practicing, sometimes even unconsciously, I've ended up practicing. Um, and so some of those things I'm going to share in this podcast that have allowed me to now work more significantly on really taking my business to the next level and grabbing the life that I thought was impossible, but I realized was actually very possible. And too many people, a lot of people are living this type of life. One thing that I started to incorporate this year, and I started this podcast in June, was a podcast. And the idea behind the podcast is to share a personal reflection from my ongoing daily life. And so these are often things like impromptu conversations that reflect on how my week has gone and the insights and learnings that I have discovered, and sharing those through my personal experiences. And I learned that that is a very important part of managing a brand, is to have your audience connect with you as a real human, as a real person. So this podcast has been so impactful in my journey because it's been something that I've thought about doing since 2019. And I remember creating the logo for the podcast at the time. And the logo, I called it the Sean Marbier Experience, which I never really, called this podcast the Sean Marbier Experience. But throughout time, I continued to let it unpack in my mind so that I can understand truly what this podcast is going to be. Only this year, when I created the logo and I was in the ideation of the logo, did I recognize that, I'm working with this branding of like deep meditation club and deep meditators, whatever I call this podcast, deep topics. And so I called it deep topics. And then this other thing came to mind, what have I been good at throughout this entire time? Because I worked that business intelligence analysis job, and I met like the most weirdest people I ever met that did stupid, like really the most fucked up things you ever could imagine people doing in a corporate environment. And so I recognized that throughout that time, I came out of that, and I really did not need that much recovery time because I was already practicing all of the things that I learned, which, the number one thing is meditation. But I only needed to do a little bit of recovery, only a little bit of recovery, because my overall maintenance in that environment was great. It was super great. So that when I left that job, I wasn't like a mess. I just needed to like remedy a few things here and there. So the tagline from it, thriving in a volatile world, came out of that experience. And so I recognized that, well, you know what? That's my brand. That's my brand. My brand is thriving in a volatile world, and thriving in a volatile world with these very niche skills that I recognize were not niche skills after all. They were just wrongly framed for the wrong audiences. And actually, meditation is like this human exercise for the mind, and it's always been a way to restore peace, calm, and clarity. And the mind has always been known as the number one tool for interacting and thriving in physical reality. And so what's a way to clean and sharpen the mind? Meditation, to observe the mind. So that has been a great and wonderful thing for me to recognize, that the podcast is my way to reflect on my daily living, and to for me to also like unpack my learnings and to package them for my audience, you who's listening to this podcast right now. And at the same time, understand what my brand is about. My brand is about thriving in a volatile world, and understand what my ikigai is about. You may not have heard ikigai, but it's like the thing you're good at. What can the world pay you for? Um, what you're passionate about, and something else I can't remember right now, which a simple Google search will help you identify what that is. But it appears for me that that thing is meditation. And when I thought about, what is the thing that I want to do that won't feel like work, I recognize that it is meditation, because meditation fulfills my overall life purpose, which is about expanding my consciousness to infinity. And meditation fulfills my impact to the world, which is about helping others expand their consciousness. And in doing so, I feel like I'm doing God's work. And meditation is part of the personal development niche. And so it is a business and it is a value offering. And meditation is something that I've seen is so impactful and meaningful that it's something I'm passionate about. I love doing it. And so when I put all of those things together, it allows me to understand that meditation is my core offering. It's a thing that I'm good at because I have put so much work into it. And I've put so much work into it that I can call myself an expert on that. And even though my initial meditation offering is a free offering, I offer the meditation technique, it's it's um it's not that my meditation technique is the most superior of all meditation techniques. It's that my meditation technique is a distillation of all of the research, reading, and practice that I've done on all of these various meditation techniques. And I've understood to myself, what's the most important technique that I can do? Because this person's offering one, and this person's offering one, and this person's offering one. But at I'm really like living what appears to be an integrated life in society. And so I need a technique that can help me um, relieve stress and can help me improve clarity and can help me facilitate spiritual goals while it's facilitating, stress relief and clarity at the same time. So that was my uh, offering when I created that meditation technique, which I don't really think I created that technique. I think I refined techniques that I've seen throughout the world. And for me, that number one meditation technique that has been so helpful is the holding infinity in mind. Holding infinity in mind or contemplating infinity. Contemplating infinity for me is the number one meditation technique. And contemplating infinity, it helps with stress relief because it shifts the focus from inside the body to outside the body and everywhere. And so whereas inside the body we can feel very like constrained and we can feel tense, when we shift our awareness outwards, we're helping the body to relax and we're helping the mind also to stretch and expand itself beyond what we appear to be our immediate stresses and problems. And that also facilitates mental clarity because the mind is not just focused now on one idea, it's focused on this vague, ambiguous, yet lofty ideal that in itself is diffuse and infinite and expanded and clear and powerful in itself. And so it's doing all of these great and wonderful things, but in just this simple way of shifting your attention everywhere. And so that for me is such a powerful thing because if that is the meditation technique that I'm offering for free, I'm teaching you how to meditate that way. I trust that you're going to find that meditation technique helpful because you are like me. You are like me. You are a seemingly everyday person living in a human society, trying to make your life work, trying to achieve your goals and dreams. You don't really want to go yet to an ashram. You don't really want to go meditate for 40 days in a forest. And so what's a meditation technique that you can do that allows you to still be a healthy, whole, functioning human in physical reality, living a human life? So putting that meditation technique out there for free, it's it's very necessary. It's very necessary, and it's my duty, I feel, to the world to show what is a meditation technique that I use, and that's been so helpful for me throughout the past 5 years. And then over and above that, my ebooks, my free ebooks that I offer, which they're often things that I have contemplated in my life at the time that have become very impactful and meaningful for me. So, for instance, the free ebook, Conscious Pain Relief, that that ebook it brings together the surrender technique from Dr. David Hawkins' book, Letting Go: The Art of Surrender, which at the time I was experiencing like immense pain and internal bleeding in my lower abdominal region. So I needed to use that technique because the pain was just a lot. The pain was a lot, and having your organs be, bleeding is not a fun thing. So when the doctors are telling you that they can't identify the reason, but then Dr. David Hawkins is telling you in his book that the surrender technique helped him to resolve some immense ailments, then of course I'm going to use it. And as I see progress on that, I can share my understanding in an ebook, and that's what I've done. And then my other ebook, Peace and How to Have It, I needed to understand for myself. People are talking about peace, but nobody really is understanding what peace looks like. And they think peace is a belief. They don't understand that peace is meant to be like an overall mental attitude. It's meant to be an overall mental attitude, and it's meant to be an experience. It's not meant to be just a belief. So I wrote that ebook because I needed to understand at the time the to distill my learnings and my reflections and my insights, but also to be able to communicate that to others. And then my other ebook, Meditation for Beginners, remember writing that on a flight. I can't remember whether it was a flight to Cape Town or a flight to Durban. I remember, just writing that in the notes app, Meditation for Beginners. And I was putting together all of the techniques, which was, and at the time I remember I was doing a three-step meditation technique. And the first step was like um, looking at the third eye region, which was the center of the forehead, and listening inside, and relaxation of the mind and body. So those, conscious relaxation, those three aspects or those three steps were essentially the meditation technique. And in some ways, I still do it. I still do it in three steps. But for me now, the three steps have become more fluid. So it's recognizing that, okay, if an area of my body is not relaxed enough, then I apply relaxation. And if my mind has drifted, then I bring it back to this like forward position. And if my listening is fixating on sounds here and there, then I bring it back to like a internal diffuse state. So now it's become this meditation technique where it is three steps, but it's three steps not one after the other. It's three steps in conjunction or applying where relevant here and there. And then the recent ebook that I wrote, which is about finding yourself and living in your truth, that was more aligned with authenticity and a purpose-driven life, because I recognized at this time that in my life I still face challenges with my authenticity and face challenges with expressing how I truly feel, because they sometimes see like I might say something that aligns more with what I think the person wants to hear from me in a people pleasing way, and then I recognize that that's a remnant of like past mental, emotional, psychological trauma, and it's not really working in my favor. So I need to practice more of this. But I also feel now that many people also deal with similar challenges. Let me write an ebook for this, and to put my learnings, 5 steps to living a more authentic, purpose-driven life, into that ebook, and then share that. So if you want to download that ebook, click below and join my newsletter, and I'm going to share that ebook with you for free. And so getting to that point where, I have a podcast now, and I've written like 4 ebooks, and I have a meditation technique course, and I have done coaching, and I've impacted like hundreds, if not thousands of people's lives. And I am living my dream life because my dream life is aligned with my authenticity, purpose, passion, meaning, and fulfillment. And I'm building my business, and I'm growing my business, and I have grown my business, and resonating with what people want, and I'm listening to the problems and challenges that they're facing, and I'm creating solutions to help them. And I have an offering on like free offering and low ticket offering and mid ticket offering and high ticket offering. And I have like understanding of what my brand is, thriving in a volatile world, and having a business and knowing what my value to the world is and what I truly enjoy doing and how can I offer that to others. And so I'm really in the space where things have come together. Things have come together in a way that I could not foresee at the time. I could not foresee how things would come together, but I continue to have faith and trust in the next step and the next step and the next step. And I was thinking about this earlier today, that whenever I've tried to have a view of it's always going to be this way. So, for instance, when I moved into this apartment, the view of like, I'm going to spend 5 years here, it never really took into account that my growth during that time might mean that at the end of 11 months, I do feel fulfilled enough to move on. And moving on is not a thing of like, I'm not happy or I'm not satisfied. It's that you have delivered everything that I thought you would and more. And I'm happy to move on now. There's something different that I'm looking for. So when I'm choosing to move out of this apartment, what I'm also choosing to do is to say that you've been so good to me. You've been so good to me. And I remember asking Lindy, when I moved into this apartment, I want to be rehabilitated to like 70%, maybe 85% back to life. Because at the time I was living in Delft, and I was really like exposed to the lowest of the low in terms of the context, the environment, my health, and I was living in a house that had mold and just the smell of like fecal matter in the air, of block sewage, and it was just weird. So I was really not at my best at the time, and when I moved here, I was looking to be my best. And then I was also not my best at the time because I was living with that woman in Sunningdale, and she was very much controlling, and I felt trapped and frustrated and suffering in my life. So I really was coming to this place like crawling. I was crawling. And then over time, even though I was working that weird job in business intelligence analysis, and those people were really like so obsessed with believing that they are the superior and the epitome of skills. And in fact, they were just too much insecure and volatile. And also, like, what a weird place. I still, at the time, felt that my overall life balance was good. My overall life balance was good because meditation was helping me. Whenever that stupid manager was saying weird and fucked up things to me, I remember feeling the volatility, but then eliminating it in meditation. And the elimination of that during meditation was just like if you have like a creased item of clothing and then you iron it. So every day I was ironing my mind, body, spirit to make sure that when I entered the new day, I was not too much accumulating the problems that these people were attempting to dump on me, because I thought I was working a job. Meanwhile, I was entering hell. So, not hell, the demon's workshop, the demon's playground. And then coming out of that, having these few months allowing me to live my healthy, whole functioning life, my healthy, whole functioning self, my dream life, enjoying my apartment, recognizing that while I was working that business intelligence analysis job, I was not enjoying my apartment. I was too much focused on other things, on trying to help that business grow, when really people were not showing any type of an acknowledgement, validation, or gratitude for the impact that I was making there. They're just overly critical, and they have too much chronic dissatisfaction and inability to be satisfied. So I was focused on that, never felt like I was getting anywhere left, and felt the best I ever did. So in this time now, taking enough time to enjoy my life, taking enough time to enjoy my life, but also restore the balance. Because when I took that job, I never really wanted to immerse myself into building somebody else's organization. I I just so happened to be like well and good intention that I thought, as a coach, I seek to improve the lives of others. So in business intelligence analysis, I'm really going to like provide these well thought out recommendations to help, increase profitability and revenue, reduce costs, and improve efficiency. Little did I know they don't give a fuck and they never wanted to improve the business. They just wanted to feel good about themselves, ego stroking. Watch out for those people. And then having this time now to enjoy my apartment. Oh, I look at it and like, I never saw you before, but I lived here for so long. I never saw you before. I'm seeing you now for the first time, and I'm really truly appreciating you with such gratitude for such a wonderful place that I'm living in. And I have this great view, and I'm still moving, but I'm moving in this immediate vicinity. And so I'll always be here. I'll always be here because I love this place. I love Claremont. I feel like my healthy, whole functioning self is here. And I am treated with respect and I'm treated with kindness. And I am validated and I'm seen and I get everything that I want from this place. So really, when there was a time, look at episode 5 when I thought about I was leaving Cape Town. In episode 5, I did not realize that I was not sufficiently practicing gratitude for the things that were working. I was only overly biased and focused on what was not working. So when I recognized that, I learned this thing on the internet lately by Bashar, who's like this guy that channels non-physical intelligence. Anyways, acknowledge what you have, not what you don't have. Appreciate what you have and allow for what needs to come next to come. And so that has been revolutionary for me because I recognize that that level of gratitude was not present there. I was too overly focused on the future, not enough balance with the present. So, having put that amount of balance in place at the moment, it is now making me recognize that there's nowhere to go and there's nothing to be and there's really nothing to do other than to exist and to continue the way I am. Because I learned this other thing lately that as life, I am it. It's not that I'm living life, is that it's that I am life. I am life, and how I am doing is how it is, not wrong or right. That's the way it is meant to go. That's how it's meant to go. It is how it's meant to go. How it's going right now is the way. There's really, I can have goals, I can have intentions and so forth, but none of those things are going to take away from that the wholeness and perfection of the current moment is in itself whole and perfect, because life is not a destination, it's a journey and it's an unfolding, and the way it's moving and the way it's unfolding right now is perfect in its movement, it's perfect in its unfolding, and so in its process is exactly how it's meant to be. And with that, I can be satisfied. I can relax and know that if I just continue the way I'm doing right now, learning, growing, doing what I need to do, delivering on my needs, working on my goals, doing my best, that I don't really have to have too much pressure on the future, too much future focus, and feel like, oh, things are going to get better, things are going to change. Isn't it the suggestion that things are not good right now? That things are not ideal right now? How can I say I'm living my dream life and yet not be acting that way? So I recognize that I am calm and I'm fulfilled and I'm grateful and I'm glad and I'm joyful. And I was having breakfast this morning and recognizing that, yeah, this is how it's always meant to be, and I'm here and it's always going to feel like this, because there's no regressing when it comes to the expansion of consciousness. Once you know something, you can't unknow it. And so I can let go of that fear of that I'll unknow it some way. I won't unknow it. I'll always know. I'll always have my learnings, and that's a lesson that people, the wealthy share on the internet. The wealthy share on the internet that when you have millions, it's easier to make more millions. But more so, if you do lose those millions, you never really feel distressed or whatever about it, because you recognize that the skills that you use to generate those millions are always with you, and no matter how the context changes, you'll never lose those skills, and those skills can always be applied in your favor. So that gives me another takeaway from this entire moment, which is the skills and the principles that I've developed throughout this time are extremely meaningful and extremely impactful. And so to continue to practice those skills and to recognize that I'll always have those skills with me makes me know that if life is a continuous unfolding, a changing, a process, then I cannot reliably expect that things in my existence will remain constant at all. I can enjoy it while it is constant, but I must not be attached to its consistency, because it may be subject to change at any time. And therefore, I must have principles in place to recognize that no matter how things change, what I value can continue to be restored. So no matter what stressful environment I'm in, if I have the skill of meditation, then I can always restore my mental clarity, peace, and calm, regardless of the situation. Whether the mountain is on fire, or the building, or some person's shouting there, or some person's an angry mess there, I'll still be able to restore my mental peace, clarity, and calm if I have the skill of meditation. Similarly, if I face depression, I must know that I must achieve quick wins in my day, and that might be making the bed, that might be cooking my favorite meal, that might be going to my favorite restaurant, brushing my teeth, taking a shower. So, recognizing that no matter where in my life, no matter what happens, if I face depression, the principle to overcome that is to restore quick wins and build momentum from that, build the momentum of accomplishment, because perhaps the depression is a reflection that I'm not seeing the extent of result that I expected to see in that time. So, in addition to releasing my expectation, recognizing that reality is what it is, maybe my expectation did not deliver, but I must still continue to do the little things, and what's meaningful and impactful for me to feel like I'm a healthy, whole, functioning human. And to recognize also that the other principles of like fulfillment has principles, and one of those principles for me is drawing. So the appreciation of beauty, the sharpening of my observation skill. If I want to go sit somewhere and draw for 6 hours, I must be able to do that. And so there are various principles that I've developed throughout this time that I've only started to recognize recently, that the circumstances of life might change at any time. And they often do change. They change. And we spend a lot of time trying to keep those circumstances stagnant. But when they change, we can often be thrown into despair, because it, we unreliably thought that the universe favors us, that the universe favors us. We unreliably thought that. So when things change, then we are thrown into volatility. We become an anxious mess, because we unreliably thought that it would be consistent when there was really no promise that it was going to be consistent. So, having the principles are very much impactful, and I really encourage you to develop your own principles. And these are often things like if then statements. If this happens, then. If this happens, then. You recognize that the objects might be different each time, but no matter what you approach, you must be able to apply a similar skill. So, for instance, the ones I've just mentioned are very good examples of principles. And I can advise you to have principles more so than stuck, stagnant ideas of how things should be. So as I continue to walk this journey of my fulfillment, my meaningful life, my dream life, and all of these things that at once never thought were possible, but as I continue to watch people around me show me how it's done, even though those people might be on YouTube, I recognize that what's most important to see is to have those types of role models for you that can show you that it's not just possible, but can show you that you are just like them. And keep in mind also that many people in your immediate environment will not support you, and they might be actively against your growth because you might be reminding them of what they're not doing in their life. Just by you having faith, courage, taking risks, grabbing opportunities, learning skills, if they are stagnant and not moving, then they might be against your growth because every time you grow, you are kind of reminding them why they're not growing. And so, if you need to remove yourself from that environment, you must do that. You must always remove yourself from the environment of toxic people. Toxic people, there are too many. There are way too many characteristics of toxic people for me to mention it in this podcast. But you must trust your intuition and know when you're dealing with toxic people. And you must not relieve yourself of such low worth that you don't think you're going to get better opportunities in the future, because that's something I also recognize that I face. There's like there was this expectation of things getting worse in the future. Like I don't know where that was implanted from, that things would get worse. And I recognize that my life has always had an overall upwards trajectory, and my life experience and my life history has actually shown me that things always get better. Things always get better. I always grow. I always master my challenges. I always incorporate my learnings. I always develop the skills. I always end up stepping into my vision. I always end up stepping into my purpose. I always end up where I wished I would be. I always end up living my goals. It always works out. And then I recognized that that was just like false mental thinking incorporated from some space that is no longer relevant to me. And to have that type of understanding that the overall upward trajectory is really not just a me thing, it's a human thing. I think we all have, even though life might have a volatility to it, and that's not necessarily like a heavy shaking, that might be a cyclical upward, downward, here and there, spring, summer, autumn, winter type thing. Even though life does have that, when you look at life on a long-term view, it is an overall upward trajectory. We do end up being better, faster, stronger anyways. So as I continue to trust in that, I started to recognize that no matter what change I'm experiencing, the next change, I'm moving to another suburb in this immediate vicinity, but that's like 10 minutes away from where I'm right now. I didn't have to go back to Delft. I didn't have to go to Delft. I didn't have to go to the northern suburbs. I really could move forward. I could move forward onto something better. And the something better that I'm moving to is an environment where it's more quiet. So it's really facilitating my meditation more. And it's furnished, which means it's also facilitating my freedom more. And it's in this immediate environment, so it's also allowing me to enjoy the things about the southern suburbs that I've always enjoyed. And it's in the southern suburbs, so I love that. And um, it's fitting my new budget, so that's great. And it's giving me more time to grow my business, which is always my priority now, because I recognize that part of the dream life is a business, because it's the plug to the economy, and it's the plug to the exchange of value. And with the exchange of value, the receipt of monetary value, and then exchanging the monetary value for more freedom, opportunities, travel, adventure, so forth. So it's really giving me a blend of things that are more ideal than what I have right now. But it's not perfect, and there really is no perfect. There's no perfect. And that's an eye opener, because some of us always think that, like, my mom always has this view of like, the next the next time you must be sure. The next time, sorry, I can't be sure because I'm figuring it out as I go along. And if it doesn't work, then I have the principles to navigate accordingly. And if it does work, then I have the principles to navigate accordingly. And so when I stopped wishing for something to be the happily ever after, I recognized that that was just like the wrong fairy tale taught to us, that makes us continuously distressed. Because throughout this entire time, I've just shared that the events and context of physical reality will always change, whether it's your relationships, or it's where you live, or it's your life, or it might be, the way your business is doing, or how your health is doing, or how your body is doing, or how your relationships are doing. They will always be subject to some type of change. And so the only thing you can be sure of is that you can navigate whatever the change is, and you navigate whatever the change is with principles. There's a book called Principles by Ray Dalio. I didn't read that book, but I watched his summary videos on YouTube. And so I'm thinking, maybe I should read that book. Maybe I should read that book. And I'm going to have a lot of time to read that book as I enjoy my Cape Town summer. My Cape Town summer, I love that the sun is coming out. And I love that I get to enjoy the sunlight. And I love that I'm starting to feel like beaming. I feel like my head is radiating with light, and I love it. I love it so much. It's when I saw in that psychedelic trip, when I saw that vision of my vitality self, I was like glowing. I was glowing and I was radiating to the gods. And so I slowly am seeing how to get there, what to do, cut out that food, get more into the sun, appreciate some of your relationships, get the social connection, work on yourself, do more meditation, you know. And I'm just understanding how to put these steps into place. And the most important thing, I guess, to recognize is that the way to bring the fulfillment of the goal, the vision, and the desire is to be right now in the feeling state of that ultimate outcome. So, if that ultimate outcome is your joyous, whole, fulfilled self, start now to feel your joyous, whole, fulfilled self, even if the context of your immediate environment might not be supporting that. There's a level of denial of the immediate environment in terms of what it should feel like that is appropriate. There's a level of denial of that is appropriate, because sometimes maybe your budget is not where you want it to be, but then you're wondering, how can I be in a wealth mindset? And recognize that a wealth mindset really is not budget dependent, it's you dependent. It's your feelings are felt on the inside. You cannot attribute your feelings to external objects, because we've just seen again throughout this entire time that external objects are subject to change. They're subject to the cyclical nature of reality. They grow, they die, there's more, there's less, they're here, they're there, there's now and then. They will always change, but you internally, you can have a level of stability based on knowing that your feelings originate internally. And how can you cultivate certain feelings so that you can remain with them regardless of where physical reality is and what it's showing you. So, in reflection on this episode reflected about my next stage in my journey, which is moving out of this apartment. This was my dream apartment. It still is my dream apartment. And the dream is not over, because if I ever want to come back, I probably can. I might not want to, only because of the proximity to traffic. Only because of the proximity to traffic, I can literally see the intersection there, and the way my life is going, I'm seeking more quiet. I'm seeking more quiet because the depths of my meditation need to compound. They need to go to additional levels, and so that's what I'm looking for at the moment. Um, so yeah, understanding what my brand is, thriving in a volatile world, recognize me reflecting on my life and understanding, like pulling the threads. The same thread that told me that art is the thing to pursue when I was depressed and suicidal in 2019, when I reflected on my past self, who was really being authentic, so too can I reflect on my current life and reflect on the thread thriving in a volatile world. So too can I reflect on that thread, dig deeper, and recognize it's the principles that I put into place that allow thriving, one of those principles being meditation. So too can I pull on the thread of business and understand, what is the brand here? How can I refine the brand more? How can I make the brand consistent across all of the opportunities on the YouTube and the LinkedIn and TikTok and the Instagram and so forth? The colors being consistent, the logo being consistent, the fonts being consistent, the sizing, this brand guideline, so forth and so forth. Learning the marketing, practicing the marketing, continue to build the business, continue to grow the business, recognizing that the business is an important part of my dream life, in addition to the principles and the mindset being the other part. It's all a very wonderful time that I'm in. It's a wonderful time, and I think that it's always been a wonderful time. In some ways, there's no time that has not been wonderful. Even when I was in the depths of despair, it has still been wonderful. It's still been wonderful because meditation has really, like, wow, it's brought back the color to life again. Meditation has brought back the color to life again. And if you're not meditating, then sorry, but your life might be dull, boring, blunt. Sharpen your mind and sharpen your life. Bring back the color to life again with meditation. And some of the people are really having this like prideful, egotistical attitude. They explain to you, oh, I can't do meditation because of this and that and that. You think you're different in saying those excuses? Those have been the excuses of thousands, if not millions, of people throughout time. And you're saying the same thing and you think you're special in your tragedies and your suffering. You're really saying the same thing. You're regurgitating the same. This is why I cannot do it. Everybody's been saying that you're not really different. So recognize that, snap out of it. Everybody has an excuse to why they're not meditating, and therefore everybody is facing the same problems, tragedies, and sufferings. What if you start meditating, sharpen your mind, get that mental clarity, and start to make some bold and courageous decisions in your life that are aligned with your authentic and purpose-driven life? Get my free ebook, join my newsletter, and I'll send you that ebook. Find yourself and live in your truth. 5 steps to living a more authentic and purpose-driven life. And continue following me on my social media, where I share tips on the daily, short videos for my podcasts, as well as other things. There's so much value that I'm offering, and the most valuable thing is that I'm giving you what I wish I would have received throughout time, but I wasn't receiving it from one person. I was receiving it from 5 different people. I was learning meditation from that person, that person, that person, that person. Each person had a different meditation. Each person has a different outcome. And then I recognized that, what if I could be that person that I was looking for back then? So I am that person now, and I'm so glad that I am that person. And if I reflect on my past self, who do I want to be like? I want to be like me and more of it. And I want to tell you that don't try to be like other people. Try to be like yourself. Try to be like your better, faster, stronger, more authentic version of you. And that's when I leave you in this podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you enjoyed what I shared in this episode. And I wish myself well, and I hope you wish me well for this next stage of my journey, which is just another step. It's just another step. And I'm going to enjoy my Cape Town summer because that's where it's headed. And if you like this episode and you'd like to see more, then please subscribe to this podcast, whether it's on YouTube or Spotify. Leave a like or stars on the platform that you're watching or listening to this on. And leave me a comment or review down below letting me know what you thought of this episode. Did you agree with anything that I've shared? Did you disagree? Or do you have an alternative perspective that you'd like to share down below? Other than that, I want to wish you a wonderful week. Thank you for listening. I'll see you again next time. Take care. Bye.